Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here, welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So today guys, we are going to be talking about classically masculine scents. Now when I say classically masculine, I'm talking about fragrances that if you were to walk into a room and smell the fragrance, but you didn't see who necessarily was wearing it, you would think, well, I don't know who's wearing that, but it definitely smells like a man is wearing it. So think about the fragrances that your dad might have worn, or your grandfather, or your uncle, or something like that. Something that you probably would think an older guy would smell. Now, not all of these fragrances are necessarily older classics. Some of them are, but there are also some modern releases in here, but they all have that classic, manly, masculine scent profile to them. I got 10 of them. We're gonna talk about it right now. All right guys, and we're back. So just to reiterate again, when I'm talking about classically masculine, think of you smell it in the air and you don't see who's wearing it, you think it's probably a man that is wearing it. Not to say that a woman wouldn't wear these scents, I'm sure women have worn some of these scents, but that's just how they come across. They come across masculine. So, first one we're gonna talk about is from the house of Guy Laroche. This is Drakkar Noir. Guy Laroche's Drakkar Noir. Classic from the 80s, probably one of the most popular fragrances from the 80s. Haven't sprayed this in a while, so I'm gonna spray it on a strip. This one here has that classic barbershop vibe, clean, aromatic, some green-like accords, some sharp kind of citruses to them, very green notes, almost woody, lots of lavender in it, some spices to support it as well. One of the other things you might see commonly in the more classical masculine scents of this type, the barbershop scents, is you're gonna maybe see some oak moss, probably some leather, definitely some heavy woods, also some florals that you might not see used as heavily in newer school fragrances or more modern fragrances, something like carnation. And most importantly, it undoubtedly has that classic masculine scent profile. So once again, from the house of Guy Laroche, this is Drakkar Noir. All right guys, so the next one's coming from the house of Tom Ford. This is Beau De Jour. Tom Ford Beau De Jour. This fragrance here, one of my favorite modern aromatic fougères. Features quite a bit of lavender, also has some strong amber in it, has some geranium, has basil, oak moss, and patchouli. This one here is a nod to the classic men's fougère scent with a modern twist. It's just a little bit sweeter than you'll typically find from those. A complete lavender bomb in the opening, so the fragrance is clean, it's gentlemanly, it's classy. This one here is kind of a testament to the classic masculine scent profile still being relevant today, even though it's not necessarily something you would find really being pushed by particularly designers as much. But ultimately, this scent profile still works. This one also has some pretty good longevity on it. It's a great classic men's scent done in a modern way. One of my favorites in my collection that capture that style of scent. Once again, Tom Ford Beau De Jour. All right, and moving on, let's go back to that classic category. This is coming from the house of Dior. This is Fahrenheit. The original Fahrenheit Eau de Toilette. Another one that my dad wore. And boy, do I have good memories of this, and I just had to have a bottle in my collection because it gives me good memories, and frankly, I love the scent profile. This one here, you're gonna get that heavy violet leaf that gives off a little bit of a petrol vibe. There's a lot of stuff going on in this fragrance, a lot of notes listed, but primarily it is that, also leathery-like accords and an assortment of spices and some florals kind of hiding in the background. To tie it in with those classic masculine fragrance notes, also has that lavender to give it that aromatic cleanliness, and also has that carnation note, something that is just not used as much in fragrances today. This one here is a timeless classic. It is still being sold on your typical retail fragrance counters, and it's been sticking around for longer than I've been alive, and another one that honestly I don't think is going anywhere. Now, it's a shame they got rid of a lot of the flankers that they had. I unfortunately didn't get to really experience a lot of those. The only one I have is the Parfum release, which is a good, more modern take on a scent profile like this. But this one has that old school classic masculine vibe. Undoubtedly, when someone smells this in the air, they're gonna think a man is wearing it. Once again, from the house of Dior, Fahrenheit. All right guys, moving on, we're gonna go to a more modern take on the classic aromatic fougère from the house of Zaharoff. This is Second Soul. Zaharoff Second Soul, literally a mirror on the front of it, so this is probably the biggest fingerprint magnet in my collection. But boy, is it a good fragrance. So this one, like I mentioned already, is a nod to that classic fougere with giving it a modern twist. This fragrance has spiciness to it, very much aromatic type notes, some greenness to it as well, and has very ambery resin-like sweetness on the dry down. So to my nose, what separates this one a lot from the more classic masculine scented is it has kind of a syrupy, sticky, resinous sweetness to it, where the other ones are a little bit more sharp and clear cut to your nose. This one has a smoothness to it that I really, really like. Really great scent. I love how this one comes across on my skin. Leaves a really nice sillage as well, and it is an extrait de parfum, so you will get some good longevity out of this as well, more than likely. Once again, from the house of Zaharoff, this is Second Soul. All right, and we're moving on. So this next one's going to be coming from the house of Guerlain. This is Guerlain Vetiver Eau de Toilette. Vetiver Eau de Toilette from the house of Guerlain. There is a Vetiver Extreme, which I unfortunately do not have, but if I ever can locate it for a good price, I might pick it up. So with this one, as far as I know, this is the oldest released fragrance in this list. This was originally released in 1959, so that was the original formulation and release from the house. Obviously, it has changed since then, but this one here, you're gonna get very sharp, bright citrus in the opening. You're gonna get a good dose of vetiver, obviously, so the scent is grassy and kind of green. It has a freshness to it. It is very citric and sharp in the beginning. Also has some tobacco in it to help out with that dry down. There's also a little bit of spiciness, primarily coming from a pretty strong accord of nutmeg, which I really, really enjoy. I like nutmeg in fragrances. So I don't know if anybody in my family ever wore anything like this, but when you get a hint of it, you definitely can pick up on a style of fragrance or perfumery for men that was something of yesteryear, particularly that very sharp citrus. That's something you'll definitely see in a lot of these masculine, cleaner fragrances, is the citrus in them is very prominent and very sharp and very edgy. My wife calls this fragrance clean shirt, and I cannot disagree with her. The cleanliness in this is undeniable. Great classic from the house of Guerlain once again. This is Vetiver. All right, guys, next up, we're moving on to one that is more modern, but it's kind of hard to really place where this one falls. I think it has old school sensibilities with also new school sensibilities. Either way, this is definitely a masculine fragrance. From the house of Orto Parisi, this is Bergamask. Orto Parisi Bergamask. Now, this house does not release notes for the fragrance, but this one here is kind of giving you a hint of some of the stuff that it's going on with it. Obviously Berga, meaning bergamot, so there's definitely a very sharp citrus to this fragrance, and the mask part tells me musk, because this fragrance is very musky, and I mean like heavily, almost animalic musk. So very sharp citrus, very fresh, very clean kind of a citrus to it. There might even be some aldehydes in this. I kind of get that kind of cleanliness as well. Maybe even some juniper. It has some green edges, but a heavy dose of musk in the base of the fragrance. This one here can be a little tough. If you can get a sample of it first, do so, because the fragrances from this house tend to be very, very strong and very, very forward. So I would say you definitely need to sample anything from this house. But this one in particular is probably still one of the easier ones to wear, because the whole vibe of the fragrance is citrus and freshness with a good heavy dose of musk, but it is just done in a very, very masculine way. So that's why it's on this list, because this one here will put some hair on your chest. Once again, from the house of Orto Parisi, this is Bergamask. All right, guys, so we're moving back into those classics. This one's coming from the house of Azzaro. This is Azzaro Pour Homme. Azzaro Pour Homme. Undoubtedly a masculine fragrance. So this one here is going to feature those spicy green accords with the fresh cleanliness, but it focusing a lot more on the spices and the greenness of the fragrance. So you get the lavender in here, you're getting like the clary sage, you're getting a prominent note of aniseed, you're getting spices and woods, of course, and there's also some leathery accords. But the main thing you're definitely gonna get when you first smell this is a hit of spices in your nose. Very peppery, even though pepper is not necessarily a listed accord. But this one here definitely smells like This one kind of probably reminds you more of your grandfather. Very peppery, very green, very edgy, very heavy, woody style fragrance. This is not a fragrance particularly my grandfather wore, but it definitely smells like something he would have worn. A true traditionally masculine and put some hair on your chest type fragrance. Once again, this is Azzaro pour Homme. All right guys, so speaking of my grandfather, this fragrance is what he actually did wear. This is Aramis. Aramis, the classic men's fougere fragrance. So this one in particular is also spicy, also leathery, also quite woody, quite green, but it features a prominent note of aldehydes in the opening, so it has a very brisk cleanliness and freshness in the opening of the fragrance. Quite strong, quite forward, a lot of oak moss in this as well, and man, definitely a hair on your chest kind of fragrance. So obviously this one holds some sentimental value for me because my grandfather wore it, but also I just love the scent profile. I love that green, leathery, oak moss heavy cleanliness that this fragrance has. Classic barbershop style fragrance. This one also has that kind of peppery spiciness that you would find in a fragrance kind of like Azzaro pour Homme. No spice in particular necessarily sticks out to me. I do kind of pick up like maybe some cinnamon and cumin lightly, but it's pretty much a blend of spices to where it just comes across spicy and in your face. This is also another one that, hey, for whatever reason, it is still sold today at regular fragrance counters. You can still find it. So this is pretty much a timeless classic as far as I'm concerned. And honestly, I don't see it going away anytime soon. Aramis, the Eau de Toilette. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for all of the classic releases. So the next two, or the last two rather, are going to be more modern releases, but they're definitely done in that classic masculine scent profile way. So from the house of Wilhelm Perfumery, this is London Funk. Wilhelm Perfumery, London Funk. This fragrance right here is green, woody, has a little bit of a cannabis accord, very kind of like being in the forest and smelling the wood and the leaves right up your nose. Very forward, not overly sweet at all. You do kind of get a kind of tree sap kind of sweetness to it, which is something you can expect to smell if you're particularly around pine trees. That's kind of a characteristic I get when I smell this fragrance. We're seeing a lot of green fragrance releases this year, particularly for the summer, from a lot of houses, designer and niche. However, this does not fit that bill. This is heavily masculine, green, and woody fragrance, while a lot of the releases that are coming out now have green tendencies to them, but they're definitely not quite like this. Hair on your chest fragrance for sure. Classically masculine, no doubt about it. Once again, from the house of Wilhelm Perfumery, this is London Funk. All right, and the final fragrance on this list is coming from the house of Lalique. This is Encre Noire. Encre Noire. I have described this fragrance as being a dark, wet, damp, muddy, grassy fragrance, and I still stand by that. It is vetiver, presented in one of the darkest ways possible, in my opinion. In the base of this fragrance, there is a good amount of musk, so that can kind of give it an interesting vibe where, you know, hey, somebody might smell it and even like it. Most people are gonna smell this and be like, what in the world? But undoubtedly, I think if you were to smell this in the air, you would think that a man is wearing it. Now, that being said, I have smelled a number of fragrances on women that have been similar styles to this fragrance, where they're kind of green and kind of damp and kind of woody, but they don't quite come across just like this one would. So even when I smelled those, I was like, honestly, I'd wear that, man. That smells awesome. But this one here, I think, still holds that masculine edge, even though it is a more modern fragrance. Once again, from the house of Lalique, this is Encre Noire. All right, guys, that is gonna do it. That was 10 fragrances that I think captures the essence of the classic masculine scent profile. Let me know down in the comments, what are some fragrances that you might put on a list like this? I'm pretty sure if your father or your grandfather or an uncle of yours wore some of those more old school men's type fragrances, there would be some stuff that you would feature on this list that I would have featured as well, I just don't have yet. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Remember to be well and smell well. And I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one, guys.